Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is, as of this recording, it is Sunday, January 25th, and we are getting ready to record more of Man in the Pond. And I can't wait to get going with it, Al! I can't wait to do Steve's voice again! Yeah, you're pretty good at doing his voice, but that's probably because your voices sound very similar. We're snacking on popcorn, too. Oh, yeah! But, without wasting any more time, I think I want to get started with Chapter 4. Today's video is going to be Chapters 4 through 6, and I'm ready to get started. Me too, Al! Have another piece of popcorn really quick, and then I'll start it. Okay, here is Chapter 4. When Annie went to bed that night, she was still scared. Her brother helped her and their father set up her bed and cover the window with curtains. More thunderstorms rolled through that night, so Martin stayed up with her so she could feel less afraid. He was sitting on a wooden kitchen chair beside the bed while lightning flashed through the curtains, illuminating the stacks of boxes in the room. Annie wrapped the blankets around herself and gasped when the thunder went off like a cannon. "Martin!" Martin put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. You're safe in here." "I want to go home," Annie whined. Martin set his hand back down on his lap and sighed. "This is our home, Annie." Not liking that answer, Annie said, "I miss the wallpaper with the pretty red butterflies on it. This house has nasty wallpaper with cracks and old berries on it." Martin chuckled just before another lightning flash lit up the old paper that was on the walls of his sister's bedroom. And those stupid-looking flowers with the curly leaves. Annie nodded, but immediately changed the subject. "I miss my teacher. Miss Woodman always wore colorful shirts and pretty earrings." Martin smiled at his sister. She was very pretty, too. She reminded me of the lady from the Magic School Bus, but I don't remember her name. "Miss Frizzle," Annie said with a faint smile forming on her face. "Miss Woodman was just like her, but her hair was blonde. I just wish she had a school bus that could fly." Martin nodded, but said nothing else, so Annie said, "Martin?" "Yeah?" he asked. "Is our pond haunted?" "No, there was just some weirdo hanging out by the cattails is all," Martin told her. "Was it a ghost hunter?" Martin shrugged. "Maybe, but he's gone now. If that guy comes back, Dad will make him very sorry." Annie sighed. "Will Uncle Rob make it home safe?" "He will if you pray for him," Martin said with a grin. "Besides, Uncle Rob is a great driver." "He is," Annie said, finally smiling at her brother. "He drove the truck for 5 hours like it was nothing." Then lightning flashed outside the window again, and the thunder exploded like a cannon all over again, causing Annie to put the blankets over her head. Ah! For the next several minutes, the storm raged on, but after it passed over, it became less and less dangerous as it dwindled down to a few remnant showers. When the rain slowed to a drizzle and the weather had calmed down, Annie finally went to sleep, but Martin stayed awake with her anyway. Now we gotta pause here with 4 stars. The weather was beautiful outside the next day. The air was much less humid, since the batch of storms that rolled through during the night had been pushed along by a fast-moving cold front. But when the sun came out, it warmed things up to a solid 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit for the daytime temperature. Martin was outside with his parents, helping them clean up the backyard, while Annie was sitting on the grass by the big oak tree in the same sweater and jeans as the day before, pretending that the tiny school bus in her hand could fly. The overgrown lawn was covered in fallen branches, old trash, and rotten, moldy leaves. Martin was helping his dad bag up the trash, while his mom put the leaves and branches in the trailer behind the lawn tractor. Pretending Miss Woodman was driving the bus, Annie said, "Let's go in outer space, kids! We're gonna go visit the big red spot on Jupiter!" Then she was surprised when something out in the middle of the old pond jumped, causing a loud plunk. Curious now, Annie set the bus aside and stood up so she could get a better look at the murky water. Since her dad was pulling the tractor around the side of the house towards the front, her mom and brother went with him, leaving her all alone. Walking over to the pond, she saw something disappear beneath the surface with a plop. As she approached the water's edge, she noticed a large clear spot in the algae where the sunlight illuminated something shiny, just a few feet past the crusty cattails. Squinting at the shiny object, Annie said, "What is that?" Then something gave her a hard shove from behind, and she fell into the pond. "Oh man, Al! Things are getting scary! And this is the end of chapter 4? "Oh yeah, it is. The way we're going to do this today is we're just going to record one chapter at a time instead of recording 3 chapters all in one go. So I'm going to end the recording for now, and then I'm going to start a new recording, and that will be chapter 5. Sounds good to me, Al! Okay. Took a little bit of a break so I could start a new recording. Now it's time to continue on with chapter 5. After I finish chapter 5, I'm going to switch to another packet of papers. I've got 4 packets of papers here to get through in total. And 19 chapters total. But here we go with chapter 5. Nate's Bar and Grill was a little more busy the next day. About half a dozen people were eating food and having a few light drinks, and Buster was at the bar, sipping from a mug once again, but he was the only familiar face the investigators saw. Ron was behind the counter serving drinks, while a different waitress served the customers their meals. The moment Steve, Tyler, Evie, and Keisha walked in carrying duffel bags, camera tripods, and their recording equipment, a few heads turned to look at them. Even Ron glanced up from giving Buster a refill when he noticed them, and he couldn't help but smile. Walking over, Ron held out his hand to Steve for a handshake. "Hey, you're the ghost guys! April told me you might be interested in checking out the place." Steve laughed and shook his hand while carrying a duffel bag in the other. "That's us!" Ron laughed too. "My dad thinks you guys are a bunch of religious kooks, but I believe you know what you're doing." Evie laughed as she held her tripod against the side of her white t-shirt with teddy bears on the front. "Religious kooks? At least he didn't call us something much worse." Ron grinned at her and motioned for the group to follow him. "Come with me to the basement. You can set things up down there, since it's where most of the activity seems to be." Leading the way to the basement stairs, Ron took them down to the excess storage area. Several pallets and boxes were stashed all over the place, and there was also a fridge and freezer down there for storing produce and the employees' lunches. A large safe bolted to one of the walls contained all of Ron's important business documents and any other assets he had which could be used for collateral if his business fell on rough times. "Set up wherever you like," Ron said. "I know it ain't as interesting as the Stonehenge house, but it'll have to do." Okay, on to the second packet of papers.
Tell me about it, Keisha said with a frown. If only we got there in time.
Ron became confused. Got there in time? What do you mean? Tyler replied, A new family just moved in, but they won't let us cleanse the pond for them. They think we're in it for the money. All those ghost hunting TV shows ruined our reputation, Keisha added. All we want to do is help. Finally understanding what they meant, Ron nodded. In the meantime, you can figure out what's been going bump in the night down here. There's no rats, I swear. Evie chuckled. That's what April told us yesterday. Ron gave her a thumbs up with both hands. Good luck! Stay safe, you guys! As soon as he hurried back up the stairs, the paranormal investigators got to work, setting up their equipment and taking their Bibles out of their duffel bags, just in case things got bad. Tyler and Steve set up the cameras, while Evie and Keisha prepared the EMF readers and the audio recording devices, so they could communicate with whatever spirits were hanging out there. Evie and Keisha put on their headphones and connected them to the recorders, so they could hear the voices of the ghosts more clearly, figuring it would be obvious if it was a trapped human spirit or something demonic. Since Tyler was the diplomat of the group, it was his job to ask the questions, while everyone else recorded everything. Is anyone here? Tyler asked. Hello? Nothing happened at first, but after a few minutes, the EMFs went wild, and Keisha's recorder picked up a feminine voice saying, Hello, I'm here. Who are you? Tyler asked. Are you a human spirit? Are you trapped? We want to help. Save her, the voice said. Save Annie. Keisha and Evie both recorded the voice, so they repeated the words to Tyler so he could ask more specific questions. Who is Annie? How could we help her? Then Steve's infrared camera picked up the silhouette of a woman with shoulder-length blonde hair wearing a black trench coat. She put her face up to the camera and said, Please, you have to save Annie. Steve's eyes went wide when he recognized the woman's face. Dear God, it's Carol Wright, the lady who killed Ricky Stonehenge. Then Carol vanished, and the recorders picked up a loud, garbled scream that caused Evie and Keisha to rip the headphones off from their ears. Now a little freaked out, they started to pack everything up, since they had to figure out who Annie was and how they were supposed to help her. Now we got another pause with 4 stars. Muddy water filled Annie's eyes and nose as she did her best to hold her breath. Algae clung to her hair and wet clothes, making it feel like a giant, slimy hand had wrapped its fingers around her. Panicking, she flailed her arms around in the pond, but then she saw the sparkling object the sun had been shining down on. It was a gold medallion on a chain. Pausing suddenly, she reached down to grab it, but as soon as her fingers curled around it, she saw a demonic face grinning at her from the murky depths. Its hair was stringy, eyes black, teeth rotted, just like Martin had described. Opening her mouth to scream, Annie accidentally inhaled water, but then a hand reached out of the darkness and grabbed her by the wrist, preventing her from getting away. That's mine! The demon growled in a gravelly voice. The evil spirit gripped her wrist tight and started to squeeze, but just then a pair of arms scooped her up by the armpits, yanking her back up out of the water. Annie! Martin screamed as he dragged his little sister out of the pond. Come on, Annie! Come on! Lay her down on the grass! Albert yelled. Kneeling beside his daughter, Albert proceeded to do CPR, but she coughed up the water onto the lawn before it was even necessary. Joining the rest of the family, Lisa cradled her daughter's wet body in her arms, holding her close. Hang on, sweetie. Daddy's going to get some help. You're going to be okay. After coughing up more water, Annie put her arms around her mother and started to cry, while Albert bolted for the house so he could call 911. Martin stayed with his mom and sister, but when he saw the gold medallion laying on the grass by the cattails, his eyes opened wide in horror. And we have yet again another pause with 4 stars. Digging through the folder containing the research on the Stonehenge house, Keisha found a picture of Carol Wright, the woman who got revenge on her 6-year-old son's killer after justice failed them. Now a little spooked, the paranormal investigators were hanging out in the basement of the bar, still trying to figure out their next move. "Do you think Annie is a member of the family who moved in?" Keisha asked. "I don't know," Steve said. "Probably." Tyler stroked the bridge of his nose with the back of his thumbnail. "It could be the daughter. It looked like Albert and his wife have 2 kids, so the youngest might be Annie." Now a bit freaked out, Evie asked, "What should we do now? Carol didn't even tell us how to help her." Steve glanced back and forth between his friends, staring hard into each of their eyes as he paused to look at them. "We pack up and go back to the Stonehenge house." Realizing how important it was that they go back there to talk some sense into Albert, they all gathered up their things and hurried up the stairs. Ron was curious about the evidence they gathered, but they left without an explanation, causing him to stand there behind the bar, scratching his head. Here's another pause with 4 stars. When the paranormal investigators pulled up in their van, there were no vehicles on the driveway, but Albert was sitting on the steps of the front porch, talking on his smartphone and looking quite worried as the tires crunched over the muddy gravel. When Albert noticed the van pulling up, he hung up his phone and stood up from where he was sitting. The moment the 4 of them got out of their vehicle, he stormed over to them in a huff. "Get off my property! Now!" "We're here to help," Evie tried to tell him. "We think the spirit in your—" Scowling now, Albert interrupted her. "The spirit in the pond? Right! I know you weirdos have been stalking my family. Which one of you pushed my little girl in the water?" "We didn't push anybody in," Keisha said. "How about your buddy with the golden medallion?" Albert asked. "That medallion belonged to the serial killer who died in that pond," Tyler explained, trying to calm everybody down. "Ricky Stonehenge died out there after Carol Wright killed him. You can look it up if you don't believe us." Albert balled his hands into fists and grit his teeth, but instead of snapping back, he told them to leave one more time. "Whatever. Just leave my property. If you come back here again, I'll call the police." "Is Annie your daughter?" Evie asked. "We only came because we thought she might be in danger." Albert didn't answer. He just turned around and went back up to the front porch of his house. He slammed the door shut behind him after disappearing inside, and that was when Steve glanced down and saw the soggy business card dissolving in the mud puddle. The number was only partially visible, so he pulled out another card and walked over to the mailbox, where he stuck it inside and put up the small yellow flag. As soon as the family had the new business card, the paranormal investigators got back in the van and took off down the road. If the family needed help, they can only pray that Albert would find it and get the stick out of his ass long enough to make the call. All right. That was the end of Chapter 5. It was quite long. Let's see, how long is Chapter 6? Because I really don't remember. Well, Chapter 6 is a decent length, but I don't think it's quite as long as Chapter 5. That's good, Al. Now we can take a little bit of a break. Oh, yeah. But Chapters 4 and 5 definitely are scary. Oh, yeah, they are, Al. Definitely. But I'm going to stop the recording here, and then we're going to continue with Chapter 6 in the next recording. Okay, now I'm ready to continue on with Chapter 6. Sounds good to me, Al! Hang on, I'm gonna get some popcorn first. And blow my nose. I'll cut this out. Okay, now I'm ready for Chapter 6. Albert was still fuming after the ghost hunting freaks left. He wanted to get the shotgun, but once he knew they weren't coming back, he managed to calm down a little. Unfortunately, his anxiety was still at its peak. The possibility that the ghost of a dead serial killer could have attacked his little girl was far too terrifying to even consider. But what if it was true? Going into the house, he went to the kitchen and leaned on the counter. Damn it. Suddenly wishing he'd gone to the ER with his wife and kids, he went to the fridge for a beer. After opening the can and sitting at the table, he put a hand on his forehead. Ricky Stonehenge, he grumbled. Could it be true? Wanting to know more about this guy, he got up and went into his living room. Plopping down behind his computer at the desk, beside his couch, he opened up the browser and typed in the serial killer's name. Sure enough, a picture of him wearing the exact outfit Martin described showed up. Albert felt a chill go down his spine when he noticed Ricky's cold, dead eyes. It even looked like there was no color in them at all, just black pupils in the center of his bloodshot eyes, which reminded Albert of a paranormal encounter he had as a teenager himself, but tried to forget. The picture then led to an actual news article about the guy, and the title was bone-chilling. Vengeful Mother Kills Child Murderer Ricky Stonehenge. Oh crap, Al mumbled to himself. Those paranormal investigators might be right. Hurrying back out to the driveway, he found the business card that he threw into the puddle the day before. Picking it up, he discovered that it was so dissolved the number was unreadable. There was nothing left of it but mush. Come on! He grumbled, before throwing the soggy business card back onto the ground. Going back inside, he decided to call his wife, just to see if he could get an update on his daughter's condition. Now we got another pause with 4 stars. No one in the van spoke at first as they headed back to their motel rooms. Steve was driving now, but he could hardly focus on the road. He was guessing the same thing as everyone else, that Albert's young daughter Annie was being attacked by an evil spirit. What do we do now? Evie asked from the front passenger seat. Steve glanced at her. I'm not really sure. Pray, I guess.
Keisha was in the back with Tyler, and they both came up with their own ideas on how they could help. We could just keep an eye on the house, Tyler said. If anything else happens, we can sneak in and do what we need to. And once Albert finds the business card in his mailbox, he'll have figured it out himself by then, Keisha added.
Nothing we can do about it now, Steve said. We'll just come back when he's ready. When they returned to the motel, they headed in for some rest, but not before locking up the van. Keeping their equipment in the vehicle in case of an emergency was essential. It could be the difference between life and death for Annie. Now there's another pause with 4 stars. Martin stayed outside the hospital while his mom kept Annie comfortable inside. What he needed most was some fresh air to help him clear his head, but since the sun was high up in the sky, he was also wearing his cowboy hat and sunglasses for moving day. A guy standing on the back of a zero-turn lawnmower zipped past him across the grass as they circled the parking lot. Letting out a sigh, Martin took off his hat. Who pushed you in, Annie? I was with Mom and Dad when we heard the splash. His poor, scared little sister had insisted over and over again that the man living in the pond had pushed her in. She also claimed that he had grabbed her wrist under the water when she found the medallion. Everything was starting to make sense, but the idea was far too terrifying to believe. As the guy running the mower made another pass behind Martin, he stepped around to the side of a random vehicle to shield himself from the flying grass clippings. Then he looked up towards the sun and squinted at it through his shades. "Please, God, if you exist and you really care, then please keep Annie safe." Tears glistened in his eyes, but were hidden by his sunglasses at first. Once they started streaming down his face, he took off the shades and begged the all-powerful thing that created the earth to have just a tiny speck of compassion one last time. Using the sleeve of his shirt to dry his eyes, he then turned and headed into the hospital. All right. That was the end of Chapter 6. In the next video for Man in the Pond, we will be recording Chapters 7 through 9. I can't wait to get to those chapters, Al! This story's getting scary! Oh yeah, it is, definitely. Anyway, I think I'm going to end the video here. If you liked chapters 4 through 6 of Man in the Pond, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel and have not subscribed yet, please do so, because you are probably going to like the rest of Man in the Pond and the other stories that I've written that I will get to eventually. Can't wait to get on with the other stories, Al. This is going to be awesome! Uploading these every Friday. Oh yeah. As of this recording, it's still Sunday. So that gives me time to edit this video and get it uploaded by Friday. Sounds good, Al! Now you can probably end the recording here. Oh yeah. Before this video ends, I wanted to add some final thoughts. If you noticed earlier on in Chapter 6, there was a moment where the voices of the characters sounded a little bit off, and my voice sounded a little bit off. Well, that's because I rewrote a section of the story and tried to change it in the video itself by recording a separate audio file. For some reason, when I made that separate recording, I think it's because my microphone is old, because it's not recording properly for some reason. Unless it's recording properly now, I'm not sure. But I will find out shortly. But it's just me for now. No Boomer at this time. I'm going to go ahead and end the video now, I think.